This is one of my favorite parts of the story of Head Smashed and Buffalo Jump, and really of all the buffalo jumps and how they worked. Because here is where the hunters gathered to make the drive take place, to actually round up the animals and move them to the cliff. And the way that they did that, the techniques that they used, have never failed to inspire me over all the years that I've studied these things. It was a mastery of their knowledge of animal behavior and animal biology that was all put together to make the buffalo do what they wanted them to do, that is what the hunters wanted them to do, and to move them in the proper direction. And it's hard to emphasize just how impossible that sounds to somebody who hasn't been raised in native culture, to imagine these wild, powerful animals out on the landscape and these frail, fragile hunters who were at a great disadvantage relative to the buffalo herds. Somehow they managed to manipulate these massive beasts and drive them towards the cliff. And I find inspiration in this every time I think about it and whenever I write about it. And one of the most important techniques they used was the use of disguises. And it sounds simple enough, but it's actually incredibly complicated, because what they did was they dressed themselves up in the form and the shape of other animals that they knew could mingle near a wild buffalo herd and would be tolerated at least to some extent, so that they could get near them and then begin to move these animals in the direction they wanted them to go. They had quite a range of animals that they used for this: antelope, deer, coyote, wolves. But perhaps the most famous of all of those is the buffalo calf. They actually had calf skins that they had skinned out, leaving the head and the horns on. And then they would drape this over their body. And this they would use as a calf decoy. And it was an incredibly elaborate trick. And I just boggle at the thought of this, that these young men, and these were people called buffalo runners, were that good that they could mingle out near a buffalo herd and attract the herd to actually follow them and trick these animals into thinking these people had become buffalo calves. And it's not just a matter of putting on an outfit or a disguise. It's really like a transformation. You don't imitate the calf, you become the calf. That was the job of these buffalo runners. And to do that, they rubbed their bodies with various scents that would take away the human smell. Wild sage would be a natural one. There's a very pungent smell. They would rub the hide over parts of their body to make sure they smelled like a buffalo. And then they would start moving in the direction of the herd and start moving the herd towards the buffalo jump. And the way they did that was by getting in front of the herd, the front meaning closer to the actual cliff, and starting to make the sound of a calf that has been separated from its mother. This is a bleating sound. You can still hear it in cattle today. It's very much the same. There's a bleating sound these calves make when they become separated from their mothers. And they go off towards the jump, making the sound. And of course, the instinct of the herd, which is composed of mostly cows and calves, is to turn and look and say, whose calf is that? Is it mine? Where is it? Where's it going? How come it's lost? Who's watching after this? And they would all begin to turn and watch this calf walking off in the distance. They would begin to follow this animal. And that was one of the ways they pulled these animals into the area that we call this the drive lanes of the gathering bases. They want to get them into this great area of the V-shaped chutes that lead to the jump. And this beautiful trick, imitating a calf, was actually witnessed by some Europeans who saw the native hunters put on these calf skins. And I think the ultimate compliment I read in all of the historic literature was from one of the early explorers who said, I watched a young man put on this calf skin, and then I watched him mingle out into the herd, perfectly imitating the sway, the movement, the body action of a buffalo calf. And he said, had I not seen the young man put on the disguise and go out into the herd, I would have shot him as one of their own calves. I think that's a testimony to just how exact, how precise their imitation was. In fact, I think the whole word imitation is kind of an injustice to it. It really was a transformation to being another animal and then luring these in. That's remarkable enough, but it gets even more astonishing at times when I read other accounts, for example, where that calf trick was used, but it was used in combination with wolves, or that is buffalo runners, these masters of disguise who were dressed up as wolves, and they would then pretend to be attacking the calf. So they would actually pursue the calf. The calf, of course, would be moving towards the buffalo jump in the direction of the jump or the cliff, and the rest of the herd is behind watching this unfold. This calf wandering off by itself, doing all the wrong things that a calf shouldn't do, shouldn't leave the herd, Meanwhile, these wolves, a couple of them converging from each side, sensing an easy prey, an easy meal, and the rest of the herd suddenly springing to action, saying, we have to get in there and discourage these wolves from causing trouble. And they would begin then to charge the wolves and try and drive them off. All of this is aimed at one thing on the part of the native hunters, and that is moving these animals in the proper direction. Beyond that, you don't really care yet whether or not they're happy or they're not happy, or they're afraid or they're not. It's get them moving, bring them into this V-shaped funnel, because that forms really the jaws of the trap that they're trying to lure these animals into. And we can see that here pan out in front of us, the beautiful valley that it's literally a big U-shaped valley. It starts way back in the gathering basin and then leads down through this channel, which you can see has high land on each side. And on each side is one of these long drive lanes of rock, these rock cairns. And if you were to follow this all the way around, it would eventually lead you right to literally right to the edge of the buffalo jump. So this beautiful channel, it's like made by the Creator to channel buffalo to the final kill.